Welcome to another live on Immigration Nation. I'm immigration lawyer Nicole Whitaker, and I'm here with immigration lawyer Adriana Jimenez, also from our firm. Hi, Adriana.
Hi, Nicole. How are you?
I'm good. Thank you for joining me.
No problem.
Today, attorney Adriana Jimenez is going to share with us a couple case studies, a couple current client cases that she's working on, and a case involving a consultation she had that kind of highlight two of the ways we help our clients get work permits, travel authorizations, green cards, and U.S. citizenship. Those programs are military parole in place for family members of U.S. military members, current service members, and veterans. And the other program is the T visa for people who have been forced to work here in the U.S. So tell us about your military parole in place case.
Yeah, so this is a client. She came to us and she told me her story, and she talked about how she was married for a long time, since like the 80s, to her US citizen husband. He was in the military, but he never filed a petition for her throughout their marriage. And then he finally, a few years ago passed away. And so she also had a son who was a veteran of the military as well. And so she had two ways to qualify for military parole in place. Ultimately, we decided to go through her son, since he is still alive and was willing to petition for her. But we came to the conclusion that we don't really see these deceased cases, because typically it's a person who is still living. And so even though, let's say that the client didn't have her son, we still could have used the petition under her spouse as a deceased veteran of the US military. And so that's something that doesn't really come up too often, but I thought was really interesting, because there may be cases out there where you never knew that your spouse could file a petition for you based on their status in the military. And even if they passed away, they can still file a petition for their loved one.
So military parole in place is for family members of military members, current and former military members. And it's a particularly special benefit because a lot of times when an immigrant has entered the US illegally, they might not be eligible to adjust status here in the US, even if they have a US citizen spouse or a US citizen parent. However, if their family member is a current or former member of the military, it can be any of the branches: the Army, the Navy, the Marines, Coast Guard, the National Guard, Space Force, the Air Force. Am I missing any?
Well, now Space Force, maybe.
Space Force. So when an immigrant, even if they entered illegally, has a family member, a spouse, an adult child, or if the immigrant is a minor and they have a parent in the military or who's a veteran of the military, they have this way to get legal status, a work permit, protection from deportation, and possibly a green card through this program, military parole in place. So it's important to know you can apply whether your family member in the military is still alive, or even if they've passed away, there might be a way for you to get legal status through military parole in place.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, so it was really exciting. I'm glad that we were able to make that work for her. We're in the process of filing that petition for her. But it's wonderful whenever we can find multiple avenues for people. And then we have an option of different strategies that we want to approach the case.
Yeah, I'm glad that she consulted with you and you found out.
Yeah, me too. The other interesting case that I wanted to talk about today is a T visa case. So this is a client that she was in her home country and she met someone and they became friends, and this friend convinced her to come to the US and said that he would help her to continue her education. And so he figured out all of the visa application process for her and got her to the US. So when she came to the US, everything changed. He made her clean for him, cook all of his meals, do his laundry, do all of his housework essentially. And then he confiscated her identity documents. So her passport, her visa, she didn't have anywhere to go. She didn't know anyone in the country. She didn't know how to leave the situation. And so when she came to us, she was pretty traumatized, and she told us about her story. And we determined that she was a victim of trafficking. And so we were able to apply for a T visa for her and get her some help, and give her access to all kinds of services. So she has been able to contact some servicers for therapy and just all kinds of things that will help her to move on from the situation that she was brought into.
Yeah, wonderful. And to think, I don't know how many people she consulted with before she met with us and found out T visa was an option. I know that the T visa is a question not all immigration lawyers screen clients for.
Mm-hmm.
Someone eligible for a T visa, no matter how long ago the trafficking happened. And I think a lot of times when people hear the word trafficking, they have this stereotype that trafficking only means sex trafficking. And really, trafficking is so much broader. And it happens in so many different industries here in the US, where people take advantage of immigrants knowing that they don't have legal status, knowing that they don't have many other options, and taking advantage of the fears that someone might have over being deported. In your case, how did the trafficker here in the US use your client's immigration status to control her, keep her in that situation where she's working basically for free for 10 years?
Yeah. So when so she came to the US. It was her first time here. She wasn't aware of how anything in this new country worked. So she was in the home with no documentation after he confiscated her visa and her passport. She had no way to leave, even if she could have found a way to leave. And then he would tell her, like, you're going to be safe indoors. Don't go outside, because if you go outside, it's a risk that the police or immigration will pick you up. And then, anything, even doctor's appointments. She needed to go to the doctor, and he said, you should not go to the doctor because they will find out, and they meaning the police or immigration. And so it was this really coercive situation that she didn't know what life was like here, and she believed him, as any person in that situation would. And that was how he was able to manipulate her and get her to stay in that trafficking situation.
Now that she has her T visa application filed, once that case is approved, what can she be looking forward to?
Yeah, so she'll have her visa granted for 4 years. And then at the 3-year mark, maybe sooner, but typically the 3-year mark, she will be able to get a green card. So she's on a pathway to a green card. And so that 4-year card, it will give her permission to work in the US and to live here in the US. So she can have a work permit and apply for, any kind of job, anything like that. So she will have access to more services and hopefully continue to heal over this situation.
Yeah, that's wonderful.
Yeah.
The other story you're going to share with us is also a T visa scenario. Tell us about a T visa situation.
Yeah. So this was a person that I consulted with who was a pastor in his country. And he came to the US after a church here in the US, part of his denomination, invited him and said, we want you to come preach and be part of our ministry. And so he agreed. He entered on a religious visa and began part of his ministry and began his preaching and did a ton of talks. Well, shortly after that, they had him move in with the family, and this family began to ask him to do, landscaping work, and it was excessive. And at first, it began with a couple hours, but then after that, it was, you need to be out doing work within the home for many hours a day. And then the ministry work ended. And so he's now stuck in this situation where he's working for this family and he's really not getting paid. And so he thought he was coming to the US to continue this ministry and do his part in, spreading the word of God. And then he comes into this really awful situation. And so it just goes to show that this can, like you said, that this can happen in any industry. It's not just limited to an employer or any kind of, manual labor type of work, or in a restaurant. It can be really any industry. So
We've had clients experience this forced labor in the US, being threatened to keep working in housekeeping, hotels, restaurants, agriculture, some religious organizations. We've had people that were like babysitters. Or, um, we've also had cases where people were forced to work for the trip to the United States. I imagine that this gentleman might feel stuck here working for that family if he came here with the plan to serve as a pastor with a religious visa. Now, maybe religious visa, he's overstayed it or it's no longer valid, and he feels like he doesn't have any other option.
yeah, exactly. And I think he had such high hopes of what he thought his life here in the US was going to be like. He entered on this religious visa, and I think he always had the plan of going back to his country. But once all of that happened, it really changed the trajectory of his life. And he did overstay, and I think is just was able to get out of that trafficking incident and that situation, but his life has completely changed after what he's experienced. So that that was it's disappointing to hear that can happen, but I'm glad that the T visa is a visa that's available for people to pursue, even though they've been victims of these kinds of crimes.
Right? It's a little hope at the end of the tunnel, a way to get a work permit, protect people, and possibly, hopefully, in most cases, a green card.
Yeah, exactly. That's the ultimate goal, is to get our clients to a green card and then to citizenship after that.
One thing to know about T visas is that not only do the principal applicants benefit from T visa applications,
Mhm.
but our clients have a spouse, minor children, in some cases, even siblings, nieces, nephews, grandchildren, and parents could potentially be included as derivatives in a T visa, um, depending on if they meet certain. Uh, so that's an important thing to know. If you have been in a situation where you've been threatened by an employer in the US, or you're placed in a situation you would have left, but because of the intimidation from your boss, your supervisor, or the owner of the company, or the way that they confiscated your legal document, or maybe they were responsible for your transportation to and from work, or they were responsible for your house, and you were in a situation where you felt like you couldn't leave, even though you wanted to, you could be eligible for the T visa. Here at Whitaker Legal, we represent clients all over the country. Our office is based in Towson, Maryland, but we represent clients in all 50
Mhm.
states. So if you have a potential T visa case, or if you'd like us to screen you to see if you're eligible for any of the family-based or humanitarian-based programs that we use to help get people work permits, travel permits, green cards, and eventually U.S. citizenship, You can give us a call at 410-207-9272 to schedule your consultation. You can schedule your consultation with me directly or me, Adriana Jimenez. Thank you, Adriana, for your time today.
Of course. Thank you.
Yeah, and we'll see you the next time on Immigration. Thanks.